Hello, welcome to our daily read aloud. So, the book we are reading in our actual classroom, we will also read here. So, I get to read every chapter twice. Lucky me. So, this book is the one we will start with. I'm still getting used to this camera. Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days by Stephen Maines. So, before I read any book, when I read the title, I always think to myself, what do I think the book will be about? Well, maybe I'm thinking this book will teach us how to be a perfect person in 3 days, which sounds a little bit unreasonable, but let's read the back. One day at the library, a book falls off the top shelf and hits Milo on the head. It's called Be a Perfect Person in Just 3 Days. The book's author, Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish, doesn't look too perfect himself. In the picture on the back cover, he's wearing a clown nose, and mustard is dripping down his chin. Milo figures the book is worth a try anyway. Perfect is obviously the perfect thing to be. But who's ever heard of wearing a stalk of broccoli around your neck for 24 hours? And that's only the first day. So, let's begin. Be a perfect person in just 3 days. First of all, think to yourself now, do you think it's a good thing to be a perfect person? Is that what we should try to be? It's a good question. Maybe we'll know the answer after we read our book. All right, and I will show you the pictures as we go. So here's our first photo. Today's chapter is quite short, so make sure you're listening. Okay, and here's our picture. Tales of Scary Monsters is the section he's in. Book falls on his head. Chapter 1. Some people want to be astronauts, or ballet dancers, or plumbers. Milo Crinkly wanted to be perfect. It all began in the library. Milo was minding his own business, looking for a good, scary monster book, when a book tumbled down from the top shelf and hit him on the head. First, he felt his aching skull to make sure it was still in one piece. You know, you always do that. Touch and make sure everything's still there. Then he picked up the book. The front cover screamed, "Be a perfect person in just 3 days." It didn't look like any monster story Milo had ever read. The author's picture was on the back. Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish did not look anything like Milo's idea of a doctor. He wore baggy zebra-striped pants that looked as though they might fall down any second, a shirt with palm trees on it and 2 buttons missing, 1 mitten, a clown nose, a bow tie with only half a bow, and a dented hat with a feather sticking up on each side. Now, we're going to rewind a little bit. This is a perfect time to make a mental movie. I'm going to try to change this so you can see me better. There you go. So a mental movie, or visualizing, when you're reading a book without pictures, or not very many pictures, your brain has to do the work. So as you hear the words, you need to picture it like a movie in your brain. So I'm going to reread our description of Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish, and I want you to make a mental movie, okay? He wore baggy, zebra-striped pants that looked as though they might fall down any second, a shirt with palm trees on it and 2 buttons missing, 1 mitten, a clown nose, a bow tie with only half a bow, and a dented hat with a feather sticking up on each side. You should have a pretty funny picture in your head. Dr. Silverfish was biting down on a hot dog, and mustard was dribbling down his chin. Getting even better, right? If you had to pick someone to teach you how to be perfect, Dr. Silverfish would not be high on your list. Yet somehow, maybe getting hit on the head had scrambled his brains a little. Milo felt almost as though the book had jumped off the shelf, grabbed him, and hollered, "Read me!" Besides, it was thin. It probably wouldn't take much time to finish. Have you ever picked a book just because it's skinny? This is a skinny one. I know everyone does that sometimes. Milo opened it to the first page, leaned against the wall, and began reading. So, this is interesting. So, this part of our story looks different. Why do you think the author made the part he was reading look different than the part we are reading? What do you think about that? Is this easier for you to tell he's reading a book? It's a different text, a different type of font. So, authors will do things like that. So this is what he's reading in his book. Chapter 1, it says, "I know what you're thinking." You know what you're thinking? You're thinking, How can a funny-looking guy like this Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish teach me how to become perfect? Right? Milo nodded. Well, maybe I'm not as stupid as I look. After all, I guessed what you were thinking, didn't I? You have just learned the first lesson in perfection. Things are not always what they seem. You may turn the page. Milo did. Chapter 2. Sorry. So it's still the book he's reading. Who says I can make you perfect? Who says I can make you perfect? I do. Dr. K. Pinkerton Silverfish. I'm an expert on perfection. If you don't believe it, just ask me. Turn the page again. Isn't this easy? Milo had never read an author quite like Dr. Silverfish. He turned the page. So is this author a little bossy? Seems a little bossy. Chapter 3. You're getting better all the time. Very good. You turned the page. You can be trusted to follow orders. This is essential if you wish to become perfect. Now I am going to tell you what you have to do if perfect is what you want to be. It will take you exactly 3 days. Each evening you will read exactly 1 chapter in this book. You will follow my instructions precisely. At the end of the 3rd day, you will be perfect, and I will congratulate you. But let me tell you something you'd better not try. And this part is in all capital letters, so that's probably very important. Under no circumstances should you attempt to become perfect in less than 3 days. Whatever you do, don't read more than 1 chapter each day. Many people are tempted to sneak a look at the very last page before the 3rd day is over. All I can say is, don't do it. In all caps again, right? Very important. So when an author wants to emphasize things, they can put it in big letters or make it bold. Suddenly, Milo had a terrible urge to flip to the last page of the book and see what it had to say. It might save him a lot of unnecessary reading. Dr. Silverfish glowered at him from the back cover, but Milo didn't care. He opened the back of the book, flipped past a couple of blank sheets, and found the last page with writing on it. You might think to yourself, would you have done what Milo did? Or do you think you would have followed the rules? And this is what the last page said. Boy, are you dumb. Didn't I tell you not to look at the last page of this book? Do you want to become perfect or don't you? All right, I'll give you one more chance. When you're finished with this page, shut the book. Some evening when you're ready to get serious about being perfect, open it to page 10. There you'll find instructions on what to do on day 1 of your program of perfection. Now, shut the book and don't say I didn't warn you. Dr. Silverfish was definitely smarter than he looked. Milo shut the book. He decided to take it home. Being perfect sounded pretty good to him. He was always getting into dumb accidents, knocking over his mother's expensive bud vase, or sitting on his sister's brand new record album, or letting the bottom fall out of a bag of groceries, mostly eggs, on the way home from the store, or getting hit on the head by books in the library. Things like that obviously didn't happen to perfect people. And he could just imagine what a welcome change it would be to hear people say, Milo, you're perfect. His big sister Eliza wouldn't be able to tell him, you are so stupid, Milo, or don't be a pest, Milo, the way she did now. His parents would never have anything to bawl him out about. And perfection would probably come in handy in ways he hadn't thought of yet. Perfect was definitely a good thing to be, and Dr. Silverfish seemed to know all about it. Milo checked out the book. Halfway home, he remembered he'd forgotten about those monster stories he'd been looking for, but he didn't go back for them. After all, there was no telling what Dr. Silverfish might ask him to do. Becoming perfect might take up most of his time for the next 3 days. And that is where we stop today, and we'll start chapter 2 tomorrow. All right. So when we do read alouds when you're in class, I ask you a lot of questions and want you to keep thinking about what you're reading. So a really good reader does that in their head. So we're going to practice all year. If you think of a prediction or a question or make a connection, those are all the things good readers should always be doing in their heads while they read. So for today, that's all we'll read, and I will see you all tomorrow.